Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Toronto International Films Festival's Industry Conference. My name is Neil McPherson. I'm the Associate Programmer of the conference, and it gives me great pleasure to introduce the second of 4 Guardian TIFF talks that are taking place throughout the festival. These talks represent a new partnership with The Guardian and our industry conference, and we are really delighted to be working with them. We'd like to thank them, and particularly Nigel Smith, who'll be here in just a minute, for putting these events together. Coming up next in this series of Guardian TIFF Talks is a double bill. On Wednesday afternoon, we'll have a focus on The Bad Batch with director Anna Lily Anapur and cast member Suki Waterhouse, as well as a look at Christine from director Antonio Campos, who will be joined by actor Rebecca Hall and writer Craig Shilovich. I hope you'll be able to join us for those. Before we get started, I'd like to remind everyone to ensure that your cell phones are turned to silent, and also want to let you know that there's absolutely no photography or filming permitted during the event. You actually have no need to film anything as we are doing it for you. The session in its entirety will be available on YouTube after the event. But today's focus is on Tramps, and we have a great lineup of special guests here with us today. To introduce them, please welcome from The Guardian, Nigel Smith.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the 4th day of TIFF. I'm sure it feels like the 10th to many of you. It does to me. I'm going to be welcoming the director and cast of this wonderful independent caper called Tramps that premiered yesterday at the festival. First, please welcome Callum Turner. And his beautiful co-star in the film, Grace Van Patten. Of course, Mike Birbiglia, who also co-stars in the movie. And last but not least, the writer and director of the film, Adam Leon.
All right.
Hi, everyone. How's it going?
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for being here. So the film premiered yesterday, right, at Scotiabank for the first time?
It did.
World premiere. How did it go?
I thought it was pretty awesome.
I don't really sit through it.
Really?
I get very nervous. My first movie, I was very excited to watch it, and 3 minutes in, I just became very, just too tense, like people were shifting.
And then he tapped my shoulder and he goes, "Mike, watch this for me." And that's when I took over.
Stop texting.
But I had just seen it on a smaller screen, and I thought it was such a joy to see it on the big screen. If you guys have a chance to see it tomorrow on the big screen, please do. It is, the photography in the film is phenomenal.
Yeah.
And the shot selection, everything is just, I thought it was a total joy.
Thank you.
Speaking as someone who's a very small part in the movie, I feel like I can compliment
Small
it.
but pivotal. Small but pivotal.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's got a wonderful textured quality to it, something kind of tangible in the look, and we can get in that in a little bit. But you brought up your first film, which of course is Gimme the Loot. I can't see hands, so I'm not going to ask who here has seen it, but can I just get a hurrah for, okay.
All right.
So we got some Gimme the Loot fans, or what do they call them, Adam?
They're now apparently called loot heads.
Loot
That is
heads.
going
Loot
around
heads,
Twitter
yeah.
in the last
All
couple
right.
of days. That loot heads are excited. For
Yeah.
Tramps.
So I consider myself a loot head.
I'm a loot head too.
Yeah. Yeah, awesome. Now, Gimme the Loot premiered at South by Southwest. Such a different festival from this. An important festival, but a lot smaller, a little more intimate. This is your first film world premiering at TIFF. What's it been like unveiling it on this kind of stage?
Well, I used to come to TIFF as a programmer for a film center that I worked at, and I was working at that film center when I was writing my first movie, when I was writing Loot. And I came a couple of years, and I used to say, I love the festival so much. It's so well run, and what's it like? It's where the movies are. It's just where the movies are, and I think to be a part of that, to be sort of in that kind of expansive club of what's going on in cinema this year, and to be included as a part of that, and be included in World Cinema, which is sort of an interesting choice because we're a U.S. film, and you don't normally think of that, but we really liked that. It's been great. I mean,
It's really hard for Americans to think of ourselves as not being where everything is.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm joking.
I don't think they
Kind of.
got it. Now, a lot of people obviously here probably have not seen the film, and we don't have a trailer for the film, given that, you know, it just was completed, what, a couple months ago, I'm guessing? Could one of you describe what it's about? Probably Adam should take the reins.
I'll do like a quick little thing. So it's a romantic adventure about two young, very beautiful people who are kind of stuck in their lives, and they get thrown together when they become a very small part of a bigger heist. And they sort of, over the course of a couple of days, they're moving around New York and the suburbs, and sort of through that time together, they get to try on their best selves with each other. They sort of get to lie, basically, and sort of be what they sort of see themselves as, or what they could be, and through that they're drawn to each other. And we sort of wanted to take the idea of a classic Hollywood romance, that idea of falling in love at the movies, and do something that felt very modern and contemporary, and maybe say that those things happen, but maybe you haven't seen them in this way before.
Yeah. Watching it, I drew a lot of parallels between it and Gimme the Loot, given the fact that it's obviously New York set. It centers on two characters that kind of slowly come closer together as the narrative goes on, and it's a caper, and it's a really, really fast pace, and it takes place in a lot of locations. Do you see this as a sister film of sorts?
You know, it's a tricky question to answer for me. I see, obviously there's these sort of facade similarities, young couple and running around New York, and it sort of deals with certain themes, hopefully very much in subtext, of moving between classes, and just also the idea of movement. I think that for me, it's a little tricky because there's so many ideas that I have and so many different projects that I was working on between Loot and Tramps, and it was just, I became incredibly engaged with these characters. I just really could hear Danny and Ellie when I came up with this idea, and I just wanted to pursue that. I think the storytelling and filmmaking approach for me, while they are in some ways companion films, the storytelling and filmmaking approach is very different, whereas Loot was a bit more of a hangout movie and something where we were exploring this world through the eyes of these two kids. This is very much taking a classic type of story, the romance, and using those story beats and doing that, but doing it in a different way. So structurally and just storytelling goal feels super different. And then I think the filmmaking, while there's some similarities, I would hope, because it's, you know, me directing both movies, we tried to take we were very rigid on Loot purposefully, and I think we tried to take a more emotional. This is, to me, a more emotional movie, and we tried to take a sort of more emotional approach to the filmmaking in the edit in particular, but also in the way that the camera moves, in our color palette, in our music choices, and how we use score, and just sort of how we use sound design, not always literally. It's not always literal filmmaking, non-sequential sequences, things like that, that are a little bit less observational and more about getting inside of the characters and the characters' feelings and heads.
Yeah. Now, the romance works so well in the film. You two have really, really great chemistry. How did you come to casting these two in these parts? I mean, Callum is not Polish, or are you?
Or American.
Or American, and he plays a Polish American in the movie. How did you come to casting them, and what did you two make of the script when you first read it?
Do you want to go first on that, or?
I'll go. You go. Yeah, I first read the script and instantly fell in love with the character. She was just so grounded and composed, but there was so much going on in her head, and I saw that as an amazing opportunity to just create this really layered character. And then I met with Adam, and I wanted to do it even more. I saw Gimme the Loot, and it looked just like such an amazing environment to work with. And that's that.
And the same for me. I got the script and was sort of taken by it. And then I got on Skype with Adam, and we talked about films like Trouble in Paradise, and this sort of genre and what he was aiming for, and Eric Rohmer movies, and about acting and actors and life, and what we wanted to do, what we wanted to achieve, and how we saw each other, how we saw ourselves. And I was like, I want to get involved with this guy. And then I'd seen Gimme the Loot before I spoke to him. So
Okay.
I was a Loot head, you know, already. And yeah, and then I auditioned, and it was terrible. And he was like, okay, I like him. So
Yeah.
yeah, that was it.
Cool. And Mike, you play a really scuzzy guy in this.
What?
A
No, I
little
played
bit.
myself.
Okay.
No, you're right.
I've never seen you play a character quite like this.
Yeah, no, I have not.
Yeah, what went into the casting of Mike for this role, and were you looking to kind of branch out and try something really different?
Well, it's based on a guy I knew.
Oh, really?
And one of the things that Jamin Washington is a producer on this movie, and I developed the story with him, and so we were really collaborating very early, and we talked about guys that we knew in this world and how we didn't feel that they were portrayed. The people we really knew weren't seen on camera that much, and that a lot of guys that are involved in a heist or some sort of illegal activity that isn't maybe violent in nature, you wouldn't necessarily, you could meet them and you would think that maybe they're an accountant. It's not necessarily, they don't advertise that they're quote unquote bad guys, which isn't even, I think, a fair assessment. So it was sort of based on a guy that I knew, and I knew Mike because you had seen Loot, and we became
Loot head.
Loot head.
because Loot Head. We become
Hashtag.
really good friends. So I wrote it with him in mind, and yeah, when you read it.
We were having lunch.
Right.
And
We haven't talked about this, actually.
Yeah, we were having lunch. And we were talking about a movie I directed called Don't Think Twice, and Adam was giving notes on that. And then I was like, "What are you working on?" And you told me the story, and I was like, "If you want me to do anything in it, I'd be game to do whatever you want." And you were like, "Well, there is a character I wrote, and I named him Mike, and I want you to play it." And I was like, well, let me read it. And then he sent it to me, and my experience of reading it was like, the first half I was like, oh, this is really well written. And then the second half I was just crying.
Really?
Which is a very rare thing to experience when you're reading a script, because screenplays are it's a hard medium. It's a hard thing to get emotion injected into on the page. And so I was just like, yeah, I mean, my whole thing was like, if you think I can do it, then I'll do it.
Right, you sort of said, do you want me to try to play this as sleazy? Because if you read the lines, and when you see the movie, if you even think about the lines and you break them down, they could be read in a sort of, I think, stereotypical kind of sleazy way.
Hey,
right, like, hey,
sleep in my bed?
sleep on my couch, and
yeah.
just do the job, and things like that. And I was like, no, I want you to bring the humanity to this person. I want this person to be very, very natural. This is who they are. There's a vulnerability there. There's a sadness there. There's a brokenness there. And when I think about sadness and brokenness, I think of
all roads lead to Mike
Birbiglia. No, and I think that's. I think one of the things that Mike is amazing at doing is finding the tone of the piece and the character, and finding the humanity in that, and making difficult choices within that. And you've heard me say this, but Jack Lemmon is sort of the person that I think of, and who's able to do that, and can be sort of funny in this way and funny in that way, and knowing what movies he's in and what character he's playing, and then with all that character not being afraid to sort of find that humanity. I'm incredibly impressed with the work that you did in this movie.
Thanks. I'm not familiar with Jack Lemmon. Do you have a more modern reference?
I mean, I have ones that I think would be funny and would get me in trouble because they'll be in my big studio movie. So.
I love that you brought up humanity, because each of these three characters, they're so fully formed right off the mark. I mean, I felt like I didn't know the three of you while watching it, but what I'm saying, fully formed characters right off the bat from when you first see them on screen. I'm guessing a lot of that had to do with the fact that I read that you did 6 weeks of rehearsal or something absurd.
It's now debated how many weeks we did of rehearsal. I think it was 6 weeks, right?
It was a month.
He says it's a month.
That's still a lot for a film. I mean, typically there's no rehearsal.
We also
almost
did.
every
Go
day.
with 6 weeks. It just sounds,
All right, it was 2 months. It was 2 months.
I was in 16 weeks of rehearsal,
Yeah.
and it was grueling. And then I realized it wasn't even rehearsal. It was just me and Adam bowling.
We did loads
really
of character
weird
work
experience.
on the start.
Yeah.
Like there's things in the film. So for instance, Danny's dad is dead. You know, but you don't mention that. There's a line with the lizard where he says, what does he say? Maybe they give them pets to die so they get used to the things when they're older. It doesn't affect them as much. And that was basically him talking about his dad. You know, that's a whole backstory that we went into that isn't even mentioned in the film.
Okay.
So it's deeper than, you know.
We do. The rehearsal process for me is doing a lot of scene work, but it's also hanging life. You know, just hanging out, going to dinner, and talking about stories in life, and then relating, and everything's centered around an energy of these characters and the story that we're telling. And I did that with the actors, I did that with the cinematographer, Ashley Connor, and just really, part of it is the getting to know each other thing, but really I think it's exploring humanity. It's trying to sort of find some, it sounds so pretentious, I can't say it, but
Say it.
No, finish the
Say it.
sentence. You
You're in
gotta
a safe
finish the
place.
sentence.
finding truth. I mean, in all honesty, it
Oh,
can
God.
sound cliche,
Oh,
but
I
we
wish
worked
you
on that
hadn't
before.
finished. I wish you hadn't finished that sentence.
But you know what?
It's worse than I
Am I allowed to
feared.
curse? Screw it. But that is what it is. I mean, like, you're trying to find who these people are, you know, who these people really are. And so we did a lot of scene work, and that would, you know, be hours at a time. We would sometimes go on location to do that. But we also did a lot of just hanging out, and then things where thinking about how Danny would react in whatever situation we find ourselves in, or how Ellie would react.
And how we have had experiences that are similar to that.
Right.
Like, you know, it becomes your as if. So when, you know, in a situation, Danny's a downtrodden kid, and if there was a time in my life where I couldn't get out of a relationship in terms of like being stamped on or bullied or whatever, that's what we talk about and relate it to the character.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that's really special about this movie, and I feel like I'm able, because my part's so small, to sort of have distance from it when I watched it last night. But what strikes me about, you know, in a lot of films here at the festival, you'll find is what's special about independent film is that this is a story that wouldn't be made by a studio because it's too subtle and it's too kind of small. It's a small slice of life, really heartful film, but it's done with the expertise and of someone who could do a studio film. I mean, Adam chose to make a small independent film, even though he could take much larger budget projects. And I think that when someone does that, I really do think it's a gift to the audience.
Yeah. I totally agree.
And also to the actors, you know, because working with Adam, he was very insistent that it wasn't going to be, you know, the way it's written, the way he saw it, it's real. All of it has to be truthful.
Yeah.
It can't be, even though
Right,
your main...
it's embracing the idea of the movie that we sort of talked about, the romance. There is this sort of, it is a movie in a lot of ways, but finding within that, you know, making sure that these characters, it's like what Michal said, who plays the older brother. He said to me last night, like, oh, I didn't really realize that my character was the bad guy, because it's like, that's not how we would ever approach that, you know, so.
And even the gangsters aren't.
Yeah.
They're like normal guys.
Yeah.
They're like the nicest guys.
They're hopefully they're people that are interesting to hang out with. You know, I mean, that's I want you to have an experience at the movies. You know, and I want you to be entertained and sort of see. You know.
Yeah. Now, both Gimme the Loot and this film, they both really ring authentically. I mean, I've been in New York for 7 years, and that's New York I know. In this film, you kind of explore the outer boroughs a little more. Can you talk about your choice in expanding the scope a bit with this picture?
Yeah, and we also have this section where they go to the suburbs, which is the middle of the movie. So I just won't answer your question. I'll talk about that. No, I'll get back to which was really important for us because it allowed them to escape the sort of energy and craziness of New York and really isolate them as their relationship develops and just give them a place that felt foreign to them where they can, again, sort of, I said before, explore their best selves. Yeah. Sorry, I just decided to answer that question. Yeah, I mean, New York.
What other questions would you like to answer?
Right.
Virgo.
How come it took that long for someone to get
the
that
delayed
joke?
laugh.
There is
That's
a
my
major.
man.
There's a. This room has a Canadian delay.
It's Aries.
Yeah.
The room has a Canadian delay, is what it is. It's a comedic delay that takes about 4.5 seconds. That's a real way to win over a Canadian audience.
The movie is about movement to me. People who are stuck, somewhat complacent in their stuck lives, and they're sort of there's a match that gets lit, and through that they're forced to move, and so it's about movement in a literal sense, and so we wanted to capture as much movement as possible. We made a list of transportation and tried to get every kind of transportation element. We have buses and bikes and trains and subways and cars and running and walking and all this stuff. And that was always very, very important. And so because of that, we wanted to use as many locations as we could and really have them moving around all different parts of the city and the suburbs. And I think that shooting on the streets provides this energy and kick to the movie that fits thematically with the movie, which is about energy and joy and fun and movement. And so that was important. And then there was sort of this other element that one of our producers, Josh Astrachan, talked about, which is the trampsiness of the movie and just the fact that in New York, we're all on foot and moving and wandering and in something that's different stylistically in this movie than in Loot is trying to capture more of that, we have these montages which are really sort of trying to capture New York life and that sort of transient nature of it.
There's a lot of it. Like I noticed last night when I watched it on the big screen, it really pops that like on the subway, you'll have like singles of like random people on the subway who aren't main characters, and it's like
And that was written into the
It's
script.
an interesting thematic choice of like essentially it's saying basically like it could be any of these people.
That was sort of it's like there's 8 million stories in the Naked City. That was Jamin, when we were writing, Jamin and I were talking about it, and this guy ran past us. And I was like, look at that guy. He could be that guy that's running to chase the girl and to change his life forever. Or he could be late for a meeting. And no one cares. And so we wanted to sort of say, like, nothing against a movie like Notting Hill, which I actually think is a super enjoyable movie.
He doesn't.
I know. But like we didn't want that version.
That one didn't even survive the 4.5 second Canadian delay.
Yeah.
Because they know I love Notting Hill. They can feel that energy. But not the like, we're going to stop traffic and we're going to, or Crocodile Dundee, which is an amazing ending where he's walking on the hands of all the people on the subway platform and stuff like that. It's like, no, I wanted to do the one where it could be anybody. It's sort of what you're saying, is that like, and nobody cares.
Yeah.
Like nobody's going to notice. I mean, you want to talk about the screaming in the subway.
Oh, there was this moment where Adam was trying to get me to smile or like really lose myself when I was struggling with it, and Jamin came up with this idea and told Adam, he said, we were on the subway, it was packed, but I was feeling insecure or whatever, and he was like, Callum, just scream as loud as you can like this, louder than that, obviously, and so I did it, and it was the most exhilarating moment of my life, and then everyone just was like looking at us like that for a second, and then was like, whatever,
Yeah.
you know? And so that's what it was like, just even with the 2-minute shot of when I find her again after the bag, there were people handing me, in different takes of people handing me like religious leaflets. There was some guy even said, I'm going to call the police. This woman's being harassed.
Yeah.
Didn't make the movie, obviously, but.
And that's,
That
it's
adds
true
to it.
here too. It's this idea of everyone being thrown together, and you're on the same block with people who are having the worst day and the best day of their life, and a normal day and tired, and they just got laid or whatever, or they just got, and that energy is very exciting, and I think informs. These are people who need, again, to move out, and that sort of helps that kickstart.
And that helped us as well as actors, I think, right? Being like just staying in character and just, I kept in the accent the whole time just because it felt easier, and you're on set the whole time. It's different when you're doing a big studio movie where you're moving from the actual studio to the trailer, and then like, all right, we'll see you in half an hour. You're just there the whole time. You're feeling the energy, you're part of it, and then you're going, and it's the same.
I read that you picked up the accent after staying in Greenpoint with some Polish people.
No, I stayed on my own, but there were Polish
Okay.
people there. And Michal, who's here, him and I spent a lot of time together. He's Polish. We ate a lot of pierogi, and I got a job in a hardware store, which was a Polish store. But what I was going to say something then, but I forgot. It's gone straight from my mind.
Oh, well,
But no, it was an intelligent move actually to put me in Greenpoint, because I could really feel the essence in 6 weeks.
Yeah, all of a
of
sudden you
being
really had strong notes about in a good way about like the wardrobe. You know, you're like,
Yeah.
I'm looking at these guys and like they wouldn't wear their socks that way.
I got to soak it up massively, basically.
It's a really non-traditional financing model for film, is to have your actors working in a hardware store and all the proceeds go into
That's
the
how we
budget.
paid for the film. I mean,
Yeah.
That's that
We all worked in hardware stores.
That's that Roger Corman thing where he had at some point had like learn how to make a movie, and he had these people pay, and they became the PAs and the low level crew for the movie, paying to do it.
Oh God.
You talk about motion so much. I'm wondering for the actors what that was like, pulling off that aspect of the film. Was it exhausting going to set every day, having to run everywhere all the time?
I broke my foot about 10 days into shooting, and there's a lot of movement. So they rescheduled it around the running. So basically the running is all at the end, luckily. But it was really hot, you know, and I just really embraced that. The sweat on my head I loved. I didn't want to not be sweating. It's panic the whole time. It wasn't tough. It was completely enjoyable because we're there and it's like a family, right? It's everyone
it
got
gets
along.
you so into it, and you're doing it, and you kind of just forget, and you're just going, and you're so in the moment, and just in the scene.
We would have you. I mean, Grace ran after that bus.
Probably ran like 4 miles that day.
Jeez.
Not quite.
In a dress.
Yeah.
It's
There
very
were-
physical roles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was
they're all right.
interesting.
They're kids. You know, they're young. They're fine. Whatever.
We had to work out a lot
Feel
before.
bad for them. They do their own stunts. Whatever.
No, but Adam, the way that you got it to be scheduled is so intelligent. Even the reshoots was scheduled into the finance, you know. And the day with the 2-minute shot when off the subway down, we did that like 40-something times.
Wow.
That took how long? Like 7 hours, 8 hours? But we got it on like what, take 40?
Take 38 is the one that's in the
Take
in the
38,
movie.
so-
But it was really important. I mean, the producers were obviously incredible at doing that and scheduling that and arranging that. And one of the things that we talked about was, I think there's this weird thing in indie film right now, which is that there's these odd things that get like applause lines, which are like, we shot this movie in 12 days. And it's like, I don't care how many, is the movie good, right? How long is the movie? I've been at Q&As where people go, where the moderator goes, and you shot on 16 millimeter film, and people applaud. And it's like, is the movie good or not? You know, and I think that one of the things that we really talked about was trying to be very light in our production on a day-to-day basis so that we could shoot more days, so that we could really capture sort of these bigger ideas and settle in and have the time to do that. You have something.
How many days did it take to shoot the movie?
What did you
You
shoot
can ask me
on?
what the budget is too.
How many days?
I think we had 42 production days.
That's a lot for a film like this.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. Wow.
But that was something Jamin and I walked into and said, and they went, gulp.
Yeah.
Gulp.
Yeah.
Now, just logistically, I'm curious, how did you shoot
We did
on
it.
the
We did it.
streets
We made it on budget.
of New York as often as you did? I mean, so much of the film takes place outside, as did Gimme the Loot, and I'm guessing the budget wasn't huge.
But in some ways, that's the trick, is that like you just can, it's very easy permit-wise to shoot in New York. And in terms of the way that we're shooting, we're not blocking, and sometimes we're blocking off streets, but for the most part, we're not blocking off streets. We're not using crane shots. We're not doing things like that. And so you actually can set up there and just shoot there. And so you get this incredible production value. And in some ways, when you're in a house, you have to set up a lot more lights. You have to do, you know, and so it allowed us to, I purposely wrote my first movie to be I think it's 85% daytime exteriors, because I knew that we could just like put a camera on a corner and just shoot them and capture, because we really had no money for that. And then I love the energy that came with that, so we did that a lot here. We had more guerrilla stuff on this movie than we did on the first.
Really?
And it's a buzz too, right? Like when we went to Grand Central, everyone was just like, all right, go, go, go. It was like a proper operation, you know?
Yeah, you go, I mean, this movie mixes in a way that we were a little concerned about, or I was at least at first, and I really give a lot of credit to the producers and to Ashley, who shot the movie, because I didn't want it to feel like an in-betweener, like that you could tell, oh, this shot was stolen, this shot wasn't, and I don't think it feels that way. I think it definitely feels of a piece. And yeah, I agree, there's something very exciting about like mapping out how you're going to go into Grand Central and steal the shot, and there's 6 people that can go in, and when this guy turns, that means we put the camera, it's something that, and it adds to, it's fun.
It's
you
like
get
a heist.
It was an adventure of its own.
Heist within a heist.
Yeah.
Look at these guys.
I love, that's one of my favorite things about
Jay.
the movie too, is it's for me it's more enjoyable than a studio film that takes place in New York City, because studio film, it's like they have to block off streets and it's all background
the
actors
extras
who
kill
are
me.
hired, and it's as opposed to your film where it's like you're capturing like a scene played out in the middle of a true tableau in New York City.
Yeah.
Extras themselves are beautiful people. I'm just talking about how they're utilized in big
Studio
studio
films,
movies.
yeah.
I don't want to get any heat mail from extras. I
You want to list a
adore
movie?
background cast.
Cool, so we're going to open it up to the audience. So if you have a question, please raise your hand, and there are folks on either end.
And if
And
it's
the light's got to come up.
and we'll take questions
There
about
we go.
anything, the Blue Jays, anything.
Yes, this man here on the left.
Sure. I'm always curious finding out the role of music. I hear people talk about temp music. I've pitched music is often the neglected stepchild of the budget. I just want to know what your, how you feel about it. Are you blocking scenes? I've got this track, I've got this needle drop, etc.
Well, music is when you hopefully you'll see the movie, and music is something that people respond to. It's very, I think it's fair to say it's a distinctive
It's a wonderful
incredible.
soundtrack.
That's what it is.
element of the movie. It's an extremely eclectic score. It has merengue and bluegrass and hip hop and rock and jazz and all this sort of stuff, Afrobeat. I know that when I'm writing, I'm creating a playlist, a huge playlist of songs that feel like the project that I'm writing. So for this, it was songs that felt like they had a lot of movement to them, songs that felt like they were full of joy and energy, but also had dirt on the tracks, if you know what I mean in that. And that, there was something a little off about them, something a little gritty or grimy about them. And talk to the producers in advance and sort of go over what we did on Loot, which was somewhat similar, talk about music clearance. I don't need to use Led Zeppelin, there's, in fact, I think...
That would have been great, though.
It would have really, really brought it home.
Oh my God, that
No,
would
I
have
actually think
really
that can be...
been wonderful.
and I've heard Jim Jarmusch talk about this too, and I really agree with it. It's like when you hear the same songs in movies over and over again, it's like there's so many amazing songs out there, and part of the discovery of any piece of art, it should be from top to bottom. It should be including the talent, and it should be including the music.
You mean like when Scorsese uses the same Rolling Stones song in 2 different movies?
It's,
You guys should see War Dogs.
we should see.
War Dogs.
Uh-huh.
Well, not to trash a
the one
movie,
that,
but
okay.
yeah. Anyways, very unimaginative use of me.
Right. And that's really important to me, and it gets me into the writing mode as well. And I have playlists that I'm giving to people. And then we worked with this incredible composer. His name's Nicholas Pertel. I've worked with him before, and he's done The Big Short. He just did this movie that's here, Moonlight, which is an incredible achievement. And the music in that is very, very different orchestral, sort of classical work. And then we're in the we because it's a movie that takes an emotional filmmaking approach. When we're in the edit, we would try a bunch of different cues, and it could be a hip hop song, and it could be a bluegrass song for the same Q, and whatever ended up feeling right, we sort of went with, and then we had a great team of people who cleared the music.
I'm not going to say that your answer was boring, but
was
that
boring.
woman is asleep.
It was boring. I'm going to say that answer was boring.
And then she just popped up.
The music.
The moment I said
The
that.
music is better in the movie than that answer, and the movie's better. I knew during it. Well, how was I going to get out?
Fully asleep.
What should I have done? You're good at this. What do you do when you're in the middle? No, I'm actually serious. What do you do? Because it happens. You're in the middle of answering a question.
Yeah.
You know that there's something exciting, and you're just stuck. All right.
I like to sleep during moments like that. Just take a nap.
You don't have like a good out?
No. No, that was a great answer. I was just making a joke at that woman's expense for being asleep.
She was feeling it.
In terms of the actors here, I wondered if you could tell me what your background has been and what you're going to do next, and the auditioning, casting your roles in this film. Could you explain that, your background and so on?
This is actually the first movie that's ever come out that I've done, so it was super exciting for me, and it was such an amazing experience, and to watch it all come together was just incredible. I did a couple things after this. I did the new Noah Baumbach movie that's gonna be out hopefully soon, and yeah, that's it. Go ahead. Time to brag about yourself.
I've been working for like 5 years, British television, but mostly American film, luckily for me, because I like being in America and Canada and away from home. And I'm about to do Mark Webb's new movie called Only Living Boy in New York. It's called Only Living Boy in New York.
I think you also have Assassin's Creed coming out.
I have Assassin's Creed coming out with Fassbender and Justin Kurzel. And
He's basically a stuntman.
Adam and I went for dinner, man. Jamin, I hear your laugh a lot. Jamin, I'm gonna kill him.
He got real high off
It's
doing
not worth it,
Assassin's
it's
Creed.
I basically was a stunt man for 2 months, 3 months.
Come on.
I basically was. No, but Adam and I were having dinner, and I just said that, and it was really stupid, and I regret it.
Okay. Can you tell us who you play? Do we have any Assassin's Creed gamer fans here? No. Okay.
No.
Well. Oh well.
I play an assassin that is a supporting character to Fassbender's assassin, but they picked me because I'm very good at stunts. I didn't audition; they just saw.
They just saw.
My jump out of the window.
They
And
jump out of
the
a
hilarious
window.
thing is that
I jump. He does something else.
It was the character. The character wouldn't have jumped like that. You know, I had a broken foot, man. Like,
Was it the broken foot or was it the character? Because
it was a combination of the two.
All right. They had to jump out of a window. He goes first, and he's like,
And I you know, it was.
she's like leaps out.
And
And then
lands
3
like a
months
cat.
later, he comes back and he's like, I'm basically a stuntman now.
And you know what? I'm laughing because that's how I said it.
Oh man. Yeah. On the far right.
Hey there. So Adam, this is a question for you. You mentioned that thing that you do about going out with the actors and your crew for dinner and kind of like getting into the touchy-feely stuff or the truth. But do you think that that is a successful approach just based on the fact that you have a pretty extensive film dialogue understanding and you've done projects before, so when you go to actors and crew and go, hey, let's go for dinner, they don't look at you cross-eyed and go, hey, this is a little bit of a weird approach? And the other thing that's kind of part of that is, what if you like a particular actor, you haven't really signed them yet, but you want to go out and get to know what they're all about, and if you don't like them when you go out for dinner, then you're not, even though they've got the acting chops, you might not want to cast them type thing?
Yeah, I think it's sort of the same answer in some ways. We talked about how everybody that you want to get involved in your project, I think this is probably true for anything, but everybody you want to get involved in Tramps, we were saying, we want when they hear they're a part of it to like call their mom and say, I got it. And that can mean they could be excited because they have it because it's their first role. They could be excited because they love the role, because they want to work with the director or the producers, or because they want to be in New York to be with their girlfriend, whatever. But you want people who are really excited to be a part of the project. That's going to open them up to be collaborators. And so that's always that's just important, and I think it's really the lesson that I've been told before, and I think it's just so true, is you have to work with good people who want to be there. And so I think if I was like, let's go get dinner, and somebody looked at me cross-eyed, it's like, this may not work, or at least may not work in the way that I work. Like, I don't know how you work, but for me, personality and getting along is something that's important to me in how we explore telling the story. So, I don't know what to say for you. I just think it's a feeling that you have to have. So if you're like, no, that's not, I don't care if I don't get along with this person this way because I know that this is how I direct and this is how I work and that's going to be totally fine. It's sort of dependent. But for me, I think it's important for me to, you spend a lot of time with these people, and I think it's wanting to be around them and people who want to be around the project, whether they want to be around me or not, but wanting to be around the movie.
Is that something that you basically picked up as part of your second feature, or that's something that you've been doing right from the get-go? Like right from the get-go, when you've started thinking about any kind of a film, any length, any duration, you're like, we're going out for dinner, we're gonna go bowl, we're gonna go do whatever.
Well, I don't bowl. I just want to make that very clear, because it's been said earlier, and I didn't want to correct, but now that it's come up twice, I hate bowling. It's terrible. It seems like a joke that we're all sort of have bought into. So bowling sucks.
Who was I bowling with? It was just like some other guy in glasses?
I'm known for my big glasses.
Did you hire like an anonymous man in glasses to take me bowling?
Well, I didn't want to go out to dinner with you, and I didn't want for the first movie, it was more important, if anything, because this had a bigger support structure, and Jameson collaborated with me on the first movie, and that was something we talked about very, very early, is that we weren't going to be able to sustain, I don't know how salty my language can be, but we weren't able to sustain jerks or people who were going to be a strain on the movie. Certain projects can, because you can have someone handling it, but for the first movie, we were working with a crew that would range from 7 to 14 people on a given day, and that's small. And so we need to be focused on what we need to be focused on. But in general, I would say you need to be focused on what you need to be focused on. There's a thing about the movie that one of my editors said at one point, which was any moment you're not thinking about Danny and Ellie is a moment wasted. Mm. And I would say that in making the movie, any moment that you're not thinking about Danny and Ellie is a moment that's wasted. Or for me, I'd say maybe Danny, Ellie, and what's for lunch would be the three things that I need to be thinking about.
What's for lunch first, and then Danny?
Yeah, what's for lunch is definitely first.
Well, on that note, we got to wrap it up. But thank you so much, everyone,
Thank
for
you.
taking part in today's panel.
Please come check out the movie tomorrow. Thank you, guys.
Thank you all.